Good afternoon, class. I'm back. It took me a little longer than I'd hoped to get around to recording this, but hopefully I'll send you into your weekend with the most of the ingredients that you need as we've been discussing chapter 2 in week 3 of the course. So as we started in class today, we were talking about some of the elements of the human geography, and we can talk about them as sociocultural issues. And North America's unique opportunities and challenges related to urbanization, immigration, race, ethnicity, religion, gender. These are all really important areas in which we want to look and sort of take the temperature, take the pulse of how North America is faring. And we started off today talking about well-being as it's indicated in some of the maps of important measures like gross national income, PPP, the HDI, the Human Development Index, and then also the Gender Equality Index. And so we were looking at these maps, and I asked you to sort of try to explain why you think North America has the level of developmental measure that these maps demonstrates. And incidentally, that's a really, in some ways, I think we could simplify this course and say that this course, this World Regional Geography course, is essentially an effort to be able to explain those maps and the level of development that different world regions show. We can actually do some pretty impressive things by starting at those maps and then working backward to try to tell the story or grasp the larger realities that a world region faces. So we started off, really what we got through today in class was this sociocultural issue of urbanization and sprawl, some of the unique aspects of the human geography of the United States and Canada, and how that is evident. We didn't get to this photo, but quite different from Vancouver, the picture in the slide before this. This is a picture of Las Vegas, and you can see the intense sprawl associated with this picture as opposed to the picture of Vancouver before it. So kind of the tale of two different stories, or two different approaches to urbanization. So moving on to immigration and diversity, one of the challenges and opportunities that North America faces are the related issues of immigration and diversity. To what degree does North America embrace difference and outside influence, and to what degree does it resist that? To what degree does it try to develop a healthy balance between the needs for immigrants, but also sometimes the issues that can accompany the arrival of immigrants, if not tended to. So it's worth noting that North America, much of the history of this world region is one of people coming from outside this region to seek a new or fresh start. And so that's a really important part of North America's human geography. Waves of migration have been happening in the Western Hemisphere. We could even go back to 12,000 years ago when the first inhabitants of the Western Hemisphere crossed the Bering Land Bridge as the original immigrants and the original humans of the Western Hemisphere. But of course, more practically and more helpful to our purposes, we have dramatic infusions of immigrants that will start with the advent of European contact, starting essentially in 1492. But then there have been successive waves. In the 1800s, a number of Europeans migrated to Middle and South America, in addition to the United States in North America. Many Asian immigrants have been coming to the United States and Canada, really going back to the mid-19th century. And more recently, in recent decades, there have been tremendous waves of immigrants largely from Mexico and Central America, although also from Asia and other parts of the world. Political refugees have sought a fresh start in the United States and Canada. But this has definitely impacted the human geography of North America, because a lot of the political and social conversations that take place um, uh, very much concern the issue of immigration, and to what degree do these people, new immigrants, to what degree do they benefit our world region? To what degree are they a cost or a drain upon our world region? To what degree they are part of the culture and part of the larger story of this world region? And so just your textbook does a pretty good job of discussing, you know, the the costs and opportunities that come with bringing new people. And there's a suggestion in your textbook that oftentimes, legal immigrants or documented immigrants who arrive in the United States and Canada are some of the more important contributors to our economy. And then there's also a suggestion in the textbook that even those who arrive undocumented, they pose less of a drain or a cost to our public assistance programs, largely because there are concerns that many undocumented immigrants feel, and some dangers that they might run by qualifying or signing up and enrolling in many of those programs. Not to mention that many undocumented immigrants are also paying taxes on their and they're contributing to the economy in the forms of labor and rent and so on and so forth. But one of the things, a colleague has talked to me a little bit about this issue of at least immigration policy in the United States, and he likes to suggest that American immigration policy is quote unquote perfectly broken, meaning in the sense that the way we have enforced or not enforced our policies has allowed private industry to benefit from the labor of undocumented immigrants, but has also not forced or required the United States to provide a fair opportunity. It hasn't extended the political benefits and the political rights that go with being a member of American society. We haven't extended that to our undocumented immigrants. And I think that statement is actually an interesting one, because it probably skillfully notes the sort of paradox of our immigration policies. It might be better if our immigration policies were clearer for all members involved, so that we were either all in or all out, because there are all sorts of challenges that come with creating a class of members of American society that don't have the full benefits and the full rights of being an American citizen. Okay, moving on. Well, this shows you a little bit of the percentage of different parts in the United States anyway, state by state, percentage of foreign-born residents, and it's a pretty revealing map. Race and ethnicity. It's worth noting, as your textbook points out, race is, and it's used in quotes here because the whole idea of race is one that's increasingly being sort of dismissed, at least among academics, and perhaps that means at some point it will be dismissed in the larger realm of North American society. Race is a useful term in the sense that it has had a tremendous meaning historically, and so exploring history and the use and the significance of the term race. But in reality, there's really it's tough to scientifically measure or determine such a term as race. People think they know what they're talking about or what they mean when they use the term, but it's one of those terms where if you examine it more closely, sort of ceases to have meaning. For example, we oftentimes throw about the term African American or Caucasian or Native American, but really most of us are a mix of different again, the term race doesn't really apply, but at what point does one who has, say, a Caucasian mother and an African American father, does that person become an African American, even though that's half of their blood lineage? Our culture struggles with that, and increasingly, as a result, the term is being, for the most part, dismissed. Ethnicity is perhaps a more useful term because it is sort of the cultural markers that are associated with a group of people, maybe based upon their customs, their historical experience, their language, their religion, so on and so forth. So the term ethnicity is perhaps a more useful one. But nonetheless, these are terms that are given meaning by the human geographies in which they occur. Okay, so in the United States and Canada, we are nations of similar ethnic histories. The very similar peoples, whether it's Native American and First Nation, or whether it's European immigrants. In the case of Canada, probably more people from French extraction have moved to Canada, but very much pretty similar across those two. Nonetheless, the idea of privilege, meaning that there are certain benefits and very subtle benefits that are given, for the most part, to people who would be considered or labeled white in both the United States and Canada. This is an area that's getting more and more attention, and it's interesting to focus on the level of privilege that is associated with certain races or ethnicities in North America. In fact, I just watched a clip on the Stephen Colbert show the other night that was an African American from the Black Lives Matter movement was talking about privilege and articulated it quite well in a way that I think really calls attention to it. Historically, even in the mid-20th century, a lot of settlement patterns, that urbanization and sprawl was driven in part by quote-unquote racial considerations of whites moving out of the urban core to suburbs, in part as a way to escape the influences of other races or ethnicities, perceived fears about education in schools and how culture might complicate or compromise the upbringing of children of the white middle class. Okay, so these are things that continue to be important issues that our culture works through, that our human geography works through. Okay, and here's a table of that was showing ethnicity and earning as broken down in the United States. Okay, religion, this is an important part of the human geography of North America. Overwhelmingly, if asked what one's religion is in North America, the overwhelming response is Christian. This is changing a bit. I think North America will be predominantly Christian for some time, but the numbers are becoming, less pronounced. In fact, more people are declaring a lack of religious affiliation as either atheists or agnostics. That's an interesting phenomenon that's happening here. But nonetheless, an important part of the human geography, religion, because it does affect culture and it affects the politics. Right? A lot of political parties in both the United States and Canada oftentimes use at least partial religious bases for reaching the positions of their parties. And we'll stop here, and I'll see you Monday.